This is KLEAN Radio.
Welcome, everybody out there listening to KLEAN Radio. All our new stations out there, Portland, all over North America, all over the world. If you go to KLEANradio.com, I'd like to welcome everybody. Everybody out there listening, no matter where you are, at home, on your computer, by your pool. Happy Sunday night. And Andrew Spanswick, unless he lost it looks a lot different this week. My co-host with the most is Dr. Jeff Nalin, and owner and operator of one of my favorite youth adolescent treatment centers ever, Paradigm Malibu. Welcome back, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I wanted to talk something really quickly before I get to something, because for a long time I've been, in the NFL, they have, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it seems like it's, so everybody's wearing pink, but there's one football player, Brandon Marshall, for the Chicago Bears, who's had mental health issues, and he decided to wear black and yellow shoes. I don't know how he picked that color for mental, right. But he picked it, and he's getting actually fined by the NFL. And but he's going to match the fine, and I think it's an awesome thing he's doing. It's something I've been saying for a long time that they should be doing. Listen, I get it. Breast cancer awareness. It's a great charity. I don't want to offend any women out there. I don't want to say what I love, but I love women, and it's great. But the Brandon Marshall thing, I've been saying for a long time. It's like you have the NFL that doesn't want to acknowledge that they have mental issues that might be going on. Yeah. And the one guy that actually decides to do it is going to get fined, and he doesn't care. But I thought it was a really cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't heard about that, so I think it's really interesting, especially because
I like to surprise people with topics.
No, it's good. It's unfortunate because the NFL has got a lot of issues like any other sport league, and I'm not exactly sure how they want to address it, but maybe this will start something up.
I mean, it sort of has to at a certain point. You have so many issues with players, and yeah, everybody has issues, but you know what? They're at a higher stage of publicity, and they do have quite a few issues. So I thought it was cool.
Yeah, like we were talking about it before with other sports, but there's a tremendous amount of pressure on those guys, and I think the NFL, like the NBA and everybody else, has become aware of the substance abuse issues, but it's like what's going on behind some of those, and maybe this will make some awareness.
And but to everybody out there listening, we're a show about addiction and recovery, and about getting to help people. And some nights are more fun, some nights are more medical, but tonight's gonna be one of those shows I want to talk about fun and recovery and a recovery life. And like I said, we have an amazing guest in tonight. She's a very happy woman, and she's got a great message. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, years ago, Jeff, I wrote an article for this newspaper called The American Spectator, and I wrote this article that I'm extremely embarrassed about now. It was called In Defense of Miley Cyrus. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to defend her. And I also often say on the show, we're not about telling people not to, but you have this girl that's 20 years old. She did this story for Rolling Stone talking about how much marijuana, how much she enjoys pot and peyote, and she saw lions and tigers in the woods, and she's 20 years old. Yeah. Now you treat people that are, teens and adolescents, and what is it that the brain forms?
Well, the brain's not fully formed until the mid-20s, they say. So there's a lot of developmental things that are happening in the brain early on. But, sometimes I think what somebody like Miley is sort of pointing out is what the terrain is for young people right now. And it's very different than it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you could go to a high school and there's 5% of the kids over there smoking behind the gym.
You knew the bad kids.
Yes, of course. And then, everybody else. And now it's sort of flipped. So there's a lot of substances going through school, and she's just pointing out that this is the terrain and the attitude about them. That's, at the beginning, a lot of people are thinking that it's not a big deal, especially when it comes to weed.
So, I mean, if you're a parent, and our guest tonight is a parent, and our director Rand is a parent, and I might be, it's got to be terrifying. And I want to talk to parents out there, and I want to talk to people out there. So give us a call. The number is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. We have an amazing guest tonight. Like I said, her name is Nanatte Zumwalt. She owns a company called Hired Power. And you got to come a little closer to the mic, Nat. Welcome to KLEAN Radio.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here tonight.
Thank you for being on. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, as you said, I am a parent. I'm also a professional, have been working in the industry of mental health and addiction since I was a teenager myself. Hired Power is the company that I have now. We work in recovery, and we're all about the transition of recovery. So our whole passion and our whole soapbox is about once someone is sober, how do they maintain sobriety? How do you live in recovery? Kind of the happy, joyous, and free. Mm-hmm. I kind of equate it to the Wizard of Oz in that they leave treatment with a one-dimensional piece of paper with directions and great information and a solid foundation, but happy, joyous, and free is kind of the Emerald City, and the path to there is full of witches and flying monkeys and poppy seeds.
Yes.
And, how do we get there? How do we get to
You just
happy,
ruined
joyous,
the Wizard
and free?
Oz for that one person out there that hasn't seen it, but the statue is up on it.
Yeah, I think most people, if you haven't seen the Wizard of Oz, get out from under the rock and figure it out.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
And so if you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. We're here with Nanatte Zumwalt, owner of Hired Power, and also an amazing mom because, am I allowed to say who, that
yes,
you have two sons that play for the UCLA football team, who's now ranked number 9.
Number 9
in the country. Your son's at all, prospect NFL, and that's really cool. Obviously, you did something pretty well.
We're working on it. We get an E for effort. That's for sure. The boys are amazing. We're loving following UCLA football. It's a lot easier when under the Jim Mora era, and being number 9 in the country doesn't hurt. We're having a great time.
That's amazing. And I used to, never mind, I will tell that story later. So let's get to it. So you have a son, you have 2 sons. I mean,
Yes.
you have a bunch of children because
I have 4.
You have 4 kids.
Yes.
And you're in that phase right now. We were talking about before the show about Miley Cyrus. And Jeff, I agree with you. She's but a child out there, then she's doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
But how do you get people? What's the message? You have this thing now that you're doing, which is awesome. It's called Sober Tailgaters, or?
We did host last night at the UCLA game Recovery First Tailgaters. It was actually started out in Louisiana by a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Beeson, who owns St. Christopher's Recovery. He's trying to put it all across the country, creating a sober, safe environment in great, fun sporting events, rock concerts, everywhere where people are gathering and sharing the message that you can be in recovery, you can have great fun, you can be in these places, and it's not about getting wasted.
Right.
And you can have as much fun, if not more. I think we had a great time yesterday.
And that's awesome. And Jeff, you're like with the teens, and we were talking about young adults, and so it's such an important thing to not tell them how to live life, but to show them how to live life.
Yeah. Right.
And I think there's that fail. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say that's why what she's doing is so important, because I've said this for a long time that for a lot of years, treatment has sort of treatment has been more about recovery at the beginning, and that's when people can run into trouble. It's like once they've done some treatment and then they have that direction, they know what their issues are, and then it's like, how do I utilize all that information and do some of the things that you're talking about, and like get re-engaged in life and re-engaged in your relationships?
How do I apply that information into my daily living? A lot of people get a lot of new information in treatment, in early recovery, in the beginning of sobriety. There's a lot of information given out. There's a lot of resources to family given out. They still don't know how to apply it. They walk out the door, and the application of the information fails people. Yeah. That's where we're really losing people, I believe, in the recovery process, and where I think we need to spend so much of our energy is how do we help them apply the information and maintain that sobriety and enter a life of recovery.
And I think it's by showing them. One of the things you do at your place is with the teens is that you show them, you take them places, you show them how to do it instead of telling them.
And a big part of it for me, just philosophically, is there's always lots of opportunities to say no to young people. And we look for the opportunities to say yes, where it's like, can I go do this crazy thing? It's like, well, if you did that, then this might happen, and you might want to think about these other things. It's not the no, no, no. And it gets into, when we have kids that are 12 to 18, they're starting to reflect on their lives for the first time. So they're used to just behaving in a way. So this treatment becomes this opportunity to say, like, okay, you're about to behave in this way. Let's take a thought about this for a minute and just think forward for a second, which is easier said than done. It's easier said than done when you're 30, much less when you're 12. And so getting them to start to look at that and see what sort of personal issues are coming up for them in their family dynamics and inside of them interpersonally, becomes part of the key to the treatment phase, which if you can get a hold of, then all of a sudden the recovery phase can really blossom, and that's why people are doing really well with you.
Yeah, well, they need that solid foundation. I'm a big believer in treatment. I'm a big believer in acquiring that information, learning how to do new things, learning about the new skills, and then the next step is applying them.
Right.
So,
by the way, if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN Radio. Give us a call. The number is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. We're also streaming live, so if you go to KLEANradio.com and want to see what the beautiful Dr. Jeff Nalin looks like, just click on that link.
Today.
And yes, you had a softball injury, but you know,
I'll live.
And that's why it's but you're active. And but so give us a call. We're also here with Nanatte Zumwalt, owner of Hired Power. A really like you're on this mission almost. It seems like to help the young adolescents out there do what their parents aren't doing or don't know what to do.
my passion is really that adolescent young adult. We work with clients, all the way through their 80s. But I think as a society where we really need to focus our time is these adolescents and young adults that are our next generation, and really helping them, helping the parents. I think the parents need a lot of support, need a lot of advice. I think parents are very hungry. Yeah. I get calls every single day. I work in a lot of high schools. They're always reaching out, don't know what to do. I really believe people do the best with what they know. Yeah. And the truth of this matter, they don't know a lot about addiction. And they don't know when is it substance use, when is it substance abuse, and when does it cross into addiction. And do
you guys think the reason for that is because they themselves have used it? Because you constantly hear, I'm 37, so if I had kids, it would be hard to tell them don't do things because I did them. So you have a lot of 45-year-old parents, that have done drugs, done a lot of drugs, might still do the drugs. But how do they tell their kid not to?
Well, I think the vast majority of the parents that we work with, they're doing things to do the best for their kids that they can, and sometimes what they're doing is cutting them off at the knees, and they don't mean to be. So a lot of it is about how do you communicate these things? How do you do it? Parenting a 5-year-old is different than parenting a 10-year-old, is different than parenting a 15-year-old. And I tell parents all the time, you have to sort of upgrade your defenses when it comes to how you speak and how you communicate these things to kids. So to answer your question a little bit, you're going to do it very differently with a 5-year-old than a 15-year-old. And sometimes, if you're being straightforward and honest, that's one way to go, and it just depends on the situation. So I agree with you, Nanette, though, that a tremendous amount of the treatment piece is not only helping reparent, but getting the parents to start doing it themselves and doing it in a new and sort of more authentic way. And
I think you're right, Judah. We do run into so many parents that are drinking and using with their kids, or believing that, it's just marijuana, it's just weed. I smoked weed as a kid. I'm a successful businessman today, so this will be my son or daughter's journey, the same as mine. And what we're seeing with the level of THC and the toxicity around marijuana today, we're also seeing outcome studies that are showing the cognitive impairment of long-term use. I was at a conference last week where the speaker was saying chronic marijuana use for 5 years will take your IQ down 1/3. So if you're in the top 1/3, well, I turned around and I said to someone, well, what if you didn't start in the top 1/3?
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's actually, if you started at a 90 IQ, you might be down to a 65.
Right. So which
is scary.
Well, and you're exactly right. And, the executive functioning is affected. Mm-hmm. And what's more important for me, and where I start with young people, especially about weed, which they really hold on to pretty tightly when they're
as
connected
to the families,
to it.
as it's just marijuana.
Yeah, and for me, it's the emotional issue is the piece that is the difficult one, because weed is so good at taking your anxiety and putting it neatly away somewhere. It's not gone, though, and my analogy is always like, if you're smoking all the time, daily, for a period of time, it's like sticking a cork in a volcano, that the emotional stuff is sort of tucked away, but underneath there's this rumbling and this building that's happening. Mm-hmm. And we see it in treatment when kids come in, they're 15, they've been smoking every day for a year. They take the cork out, and there is this backlog of emotional stuff, and that's the biggest problem I have with weed. It's not going to cause cancer for a long time. There's lots of brain studies that say it will do stuff, but it's not as quick and dirty as some of the other drugs. It's the emotional piece that grabs them right away.
By the way, if you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. Give us a call. The number is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. Let's go to Sandy. Welcome to Clean Radio, Sandy. I got the wrong call, so we'll get right back to whoever this is in a second. Let's go to Sandy. Welcome to Clean Radio, Sandy. Sandy?
Yes.
Welcome to Clean Radio.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my call.
You got it.
Okay, I was calling. I'm a grandmother, and I'm really concerned about my grandson.
Okay. How old is he?
He's going to be 16 next month.
Okay.
And I know he's smoking marijuana, and he's suddenly becoming very angry, moody, and depressed. And my daughter, who's his mother, is just handling him very poorly. All they ever do is argue with each other, and I don't know how to intervene with them.
Well, you called on the perfect night, and I will let the two guests, I will let Nanette and Jeff help you out with this.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm sorry that that's happening, but, you know, I think you're running into a pretty common problem, and I don't know what your relationship's like with your daughter.
I'm guessing it's not good because I heard anger in her voice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're disagreeing on how to handle my grandson.
Right.
So
Right.
there's anger there, and, you know, all she's doing is arguing with him, and I don't think that's going to help.
What's your relationship like with your grandson?
It's very good.
Okay, so that might be the avenue to start, just that you see what's going on, and if you know he's smoking, I don't know if he's doing it openly, or I think the important piece is just having an adult that he has a good relationship with, be able to talk to him openly about what he's doing, maybe why he's doing it if he has that awareness, and some of your concerns. And, you know, you'll meet with some of the defensiveness, but at least it starts the conversation where it's not just about the defensiveness and the raging against it. I mean,
Well, I'm also not sure that he's not using other substances.
Sure.
And he's becoming very moody. So how do you know when they need treatment?
well,
Sandy, you know, I'm going to say what I said before the show. You know, when we were sitting in a room, if you have to ask,
right.
it's probably a yes. And the reason I say that is because, Sandy, you seem like you're a loving grandmother. You're very intelligent, and you know.
Yes.
You know in your heart. And
Right.
you know what the worst thing you could ever do as a family member is denial.
The other piece of
Yeah.
it is, you know, it doesn't really matter if you know exactly how much they're smoking or exactly how much they're using or snorting. You're starting to see the relationship stuff start to happen, the moodiness. Suddenly you have a 16-year-old kid who's not happy anymore and who's fighting with the family. And those are issues that treatment addresses too. And really, they're some of the underlying reasons, if there's anxiety or depression there, or if it's really just substance related. All roads lead to Rome if you start to deal with it and start to talk about it. And he has this wonderful grandma that is that can start that process because he seems to be stuck in a rut.
And there are resources in the community. How is he doing in school?
Well, he used to be a good student, and that's the other thing. His grades are not as good as they used to be.
So there's resources at school, there's resources in outpatient, in individual therapy, and luckily we're blessed, as Judah said earlier, with Jeff, in having some local treatment centers that can meet the care and the need of families and adolescents. So I think it's right now, it's not a question of does he need it, it's a question of what level does he need and
Right.
how do I access this? How do I bring my daughter to the conversation? How do I get my grandson's needs met?
Right.
And where do we go from here? And I think if I'm hearing you correctly, that's the question I'm really hearing you ask.
Exactly.
Sandy, I want to tell you something. My grandmother, who was very influential, I'm 37, and I got sober when I was 22. My grandmother was extremely influential in me getting sober.
That's good to hear.
And I'm not just saying that because you're a grandmother. My grandmother was really, really amazing, and she never gave up on me. And, it was an amazing gift I had. And, sometimes in families there's a lot of, your grandson's very lucky to have a grandmother, because sometimes there's a dysfunction in families where
Yes.
your daughter...
Just sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. I'm trying to be nice. It is her. So here's the thing, Sandy. We're going to try to help you out as much as possible. Nanette has a company called Hired Power, and she'll gladly talk to you. I'm volunteering her now to talk to you for free. And
I'd be happy to.
And then Jeff over here runs an amazing treatment center called Paradigm Malibu. that treats adolescents, and we don't know yet. And that's the thing. We don't know yet, but and the cool thing is they could also talk to your daughter,
right,
with you,
and help you with that conversation.
Because this is one of the hardest things. It's it's your daughter, and she wants to be. Denial is one of those things I think people want to be in.
Yeah.
Because
it's easier.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And it's you don't have help out there from like we were talking about with Miley Cyrus.
Yeah.
There's no help in the media.
Right.
There's no
You're an important piece, though, because what Judah said, Judah had a grandmother, but what we see a lot with the young people who come into treatment, there's some, if their parents to them are both idiots and don't get me, there's always somebody there that's in their life, another adult, whether it's a coach or something else that sort of can be that conduit to get them to start opening up. And for you, for your grandson, that's you right now. And so it's, a scary position to be in, but you're doing the right things.
You're doing amazing.
And start the conversation with your grandson. Start the conversation, open it up, share your concerns, be honest.
So I should start it with him first rather than my daughter.
Sure.
You know what, Sandy? I'm going to tell you what. We're going to put you on hold, and Rand is going to get your information if that's okay. I'm going to have Nanette give you a call, have Jeff give you a call. And just take a step back and listen to the pros.
Okay.
Because you called, I really mean that, you called the best night for pros.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
So
for
hold
your
on.
help.
Okay, Sandy,
great.
hold on.
Okay.
And if you just tuned in, you're listening to Clean Radio. That's Sandy calling about her grandkid. And I really do believe that, guys, that if you have to ask if there's a problem, we talk about denial. You go into schools a lot and all that jazz. I always say I could walk into any school and tell you what kid has potential to be an alcoholic or a drug addict.
Right.
And it's the kid looking out the window, staring into the abyss, daydreaming, that the school will say, oh, he's not a good student. He's not interested.
Yeah, they know a little bit.
Yeah. Why don't you go walk up to that kid and talk to him and say, what's going on in your life?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, though, I am in a lot of schools, and I see a lot of kids and young adults that are somewhat managing. The grades are okay, and some of the peripheral things are okay, but there's still the drug use. There's the binge drinking. There's the binge using. There's the dieting, the eating disorders, the trauma. There's a lot of things going on that grades may be fine. So you've got to be aware and really watching.
And there's a delay factor, that a lot of kids can hold it together for a while, but it starts becoming diminishing returns. And with this person, maybe she's grabbing her grandson before the crash. So
we hope so.
Yeah.
And if you just tuned in, we got to go to a break in a second. We're in the studio tonight with Dr. Jeff Nalin, owner and operator of Paradigm Malibu, and Nanatte Zumwalt, owner of Hired Power and mother to some of the best UCLA football players out there. We're going to take your calls when we come back. We got Jason lined up. The discussion continues at Clean Radio.
Go Bruins.
Are you or someone you care about addicted to drugs or alcohol? Addiction ruins lives and destroys families. Bring an end to the pain and suffering by calling KLEAN Treatment Centers. KLEAN has helped people from around the world break free by not only treating the addiction, but the underlying causes and providing vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean with no gimmicks and no false promises. If you need immediate assistance or just have questions, call KLEAN Treatment Centers for guidance. A much better life awaits.
Guest tonight, the amazingly talented Nanatte Zumwalt. We're in the studio and with Dr. Jeff Nalin. I got it right this time.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with
the UCLA song.
Exactly. Well, you're you know what's great about being from Brooklyn? I could root for anybody.
Right.
Right. So blue and gold is the color.
Yeah. I'm a big UCLA fan this year.
Stick with us. Stick with us.
And we're talking a lot about tonight where you're Jeff Nalin, doctor extraordinaire, and I'm going to say your name about 30 times, and
you'll get it.
But here's the thing: you own and operate a teen adolescent treatment center, and Nanette, you're an interventionist, and you help families out, you help people out. And we're going to get to a call quickly, but I want to talk a little bit after we get to the call about what an intervention is.
Sure.
Yeah. And let's go to Jacob in Los Angeles. Welcome to Clean Radio.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Did I get your name right?
Yeah, it's actually Edward Jacob.
Oh, Edward Jacob. We're having computer issues.
Yeah, I have a question for Dr. Nalin. What is a typical day of treatment like for a teenager? Because I always think of it as like a horrible experience or like a horrible place.
Okay. No, I hear that. Believe me, I hear that a lot with people coming from different places. You know, like teen treatment has sort of a kind of sordid history of being really compliance-based and punitive.
Plus, you have the wilderness
behavior
stuff.
modification.
Yeah, a lot of behavior mod, and they just want to stop these behaviors as opposed to finding out what they're all about. And but to answer your question, you know, the day starts with breakfast and a check-in group, and that we have a accelerated classroom on our property, and we have teachers and tutors from Pepperdine and UCLA, so they're in school for the morning. And they're at all different kinds of levels of school. I mean, sometimes we have people who are really behind and have to catch up, and other times we have people who are on AP Calculus, so we definitely need tutors because I'm not going to be helping them with AP Calculus. And after school, though, every day we have lunch and go out on recreational therapy. So we'll utilize things in the area. We'll go surfing with them. We'll go to the beach. We'll go on hikes. We'll get them outside. Like, this is what it's like to go out and do stuff.
Because you are centrally located, too. You're in Malibu, so you're not in the boon. You know, you're not taking... Here's the thing, and I think what he's asking also is because for years, right, we have these wilderness camps, right?
Yes.
You hear about kids going to, like...
There's some great wilderness programs, I'll tell you, though. I mean, you know, for the right kid, there's a right place.
Right.
But I think, like you said, Dr. Jeff, getting them outside after being in a classroom, getting them physical again, getting that endorphin.
We're trying to mimic a balanced life, you know, and it's I wouldn't want to be cooped up. So it's like getting out and doing interesting things with sober people and trying to re-engage in life.
Getting your body moving again,
Absolutely.
healthy movement, healthy intake.
Yeah, there's lots of assessments up front. So the nutritional assessment is a big piece. But then in the afternoons when they get back around 2:30, 3 o'clock, then we do all of the therapeutic part of the day. And we start off with an expressive arts group of some kind. We have a music therapist, an art therapist, a writing therapist, a drama therapist. And it's all not arts and crafts and drama to do drama. It's therapy.
Are you asking for yourself? Any,
No,
I mean, for
I actually, no, I have a nephew.
that's what I meant. Yeah, I didn't mean.
Yeah.
There's some amazing treatment out there for adolescents across the country, really just depending on what it is you're looking for. Tell us a little bit about your nephew.
Yeah, he's 16 and has an addiction to ecstasy and Molly, and it's a bit confusing to me, like even like what the difference is between the two.
Jeff?
Well, I mean, what they're, you know, we had this discussion at one point before, too, that, you know, what's Molly to one person's not Molly to another. But in its purest sense, Molly is the pure form of MDMA without any of the cut stuff in it. So it's pure ecstasy. And what you really find is that not a whole lot of people are getting pure ecstasy. They're calling whatever they get Molly.
Right.
It's just sort of the latest thing. But, you know, it's a hugely problematic drug that can do things really quickly to people, especially when they're 16. And we talked earlier about the brain's not fully developed and you're pumping a lot of methamphetamines into it along with other substances.
And the odds are if he's doing Molly and he's doing ecstasy, he's probably smoking weed.
Right.
He's probably doing other things.
Experimenting with all sorts of other drugs.
Where's your nephew located?
Yeah, he's actually in Chicago.
Okay. And what are his parents in the picture?
He lives with his mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does she have any clue?
She does, but it's difficult for her, I think, and she works quite a bit.
Right.
I think you're bringing up the right points, though, because it's one of the things that really stops families, and especially kids, from coming in is the fear of the myths that go on in treatment.
Yeah.
And so, you know, knowing that any place you talk to that, you know, is going to limit contact or it's going to do any of those things, if they're doing lots of chores instead of therapy, you know.
If they're out of the country.
Yes, if they're out of the country, that's a big one. You know, so I encourage, you know, you got to use your common sense. If you get somebody on the phone and it just feels right, and going to visit the places, I think, is important. To get a
Visiting
sense
is
of,
very, if you have an opportunity to be on the ground, to meet the people that are going to be working with your adolescent, best case.
And for me, as you know, my whole career has been working with youth, and as a youth advocate for getting kids out of, you know, juvenile hall for drug offenses is where I started. It's really, really important to me that they know that there's nothing that occurs in treatment that should be demeaning or they should be talked down to. It's about them being the leader of their treatment team and being able to advocate for themselves. We want to teach them how to do those things and how to advocate for themselves and be authentic people.
And parent involvement should be of the utmost importance. We're trying to, parents do the best they can with what they know. So we have to teach them and educate them in the process.
Really true.
Communication skills, drug awareness, all of that. So if it's a program that's not including families or not including that education piece, it's not the program for you.
Yeah. I mean, Nanette's totally right because, you can get them ready, but the rubber meets the road when they go home, and mom and dad and anybody else who's around you as uncle, you got to be on the same page and be supportive of all of that and knowledgeable about how to address issues when they come up, because they'll come up. It's about planning for when stuff hits the fan when they go home. So,
Edward, is there any way we could help you?
Yeah, I'm actually just interested in Paradigm, and I guess I can Google it or
What's the website, Jeff?
You can. Thanks. It's www.paradigmmalibu.com.
Why don't you spell it, because I can't even spell Paradigm sometimes.
855-78-OTEEN is the phone number. And we have somebody 24 hours that can talk to you.
And check it out, Edward. And here's the thing. It's one of the things I really like, and the reason I bring certain people on the show is because they're not about the money. And, you have to make money, but to help people sometimes, but that's not what their first focus is. And guys like Jeff and Cole, who work there, and Nanette, who's here, they'll talk to you whenever they can, and they'll help, and they'll be your advocates. And that's what we're a show about sometimes, is being your advocate, because a lot of people out there don't know that teenagers have insurance for healthcare, for treatment.
And also, I always say, too, that it's like you can call us and talk to us and use us as a referral source. And it's like if we're not the right place, we will help you find the right place, because we're really committed to that.
And we have professionals in the Chicago area that are prominent with adolescents that can help you and help you get connected to Paradigm if that's the right place. Jeff will steer you correctly if he thinks that's the right place or not. And we'll get you connected.
Sound good, Edward?
Yeah, thanks so much.
And do me a favor, Edward. Call back the show. We're on every Sunday night, and let us know how it's going. Okay?
Yeah, I will, and thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for picking up the phone.
Thank you, Edward.
Yeah, thanks.
We got all these great family members that are watching stuff happening.
It's and if you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. Give us a call. That was Edward calling about his nephew. The number is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. I actually find it, we're in the studio tonight with Nanatte Zumwalt, owner of Hired Power, and Dr. Jeff Nalin. Yes, I got it.
He did. He did. He nailed it.
I nailed it. That's exactly right. That was your tip.
Right.
And but here's the thing. It's amazing that we're having family members call in about a significant other, as opposed to the mom who might not have heard of the show. This is good, but it's sort of, we always think that nobody knows. When people are in addiction, it's like the people that drink vodka, they think they don't smell.
Right.
If you're drinking vodka, you smell.
Yeah.
And the parents don't want to address it because they want to keep that image, or they don't want someone on the outside to know. But the truth of the matter is people know. The teachers know.
Yeah.
The people at the football game know. I mean, people are noticing if your child's in trouble.
So many of the parents, too, feel a sense of shame, or they're going to get blamed. Like, I screwed this up. And it's so important right from the beginning to just, I don't care how people got here. It's like, let's just take what's working and use it, and take what's not working and play with it.
This isn't like we're going to beat your parents up day,
No.
And I think a lot of parents, I was very blessed that my parents were actually able to, people always say, how did your family get better? And I always say, because my family was willing to admit they might not have done the, things perfectly correct.
Right.
But it wasn't like, let's beat up the Friedman day. It was, let's just figure this out.
Yeah.
And it really, that family recovery, to the people out there, the family afterwards, which is one of my favorite chapters in, in one of the 12-step books, and it talks about that. There's a whole chapter about how the family is going to get great.
Yeah.
Has a chance to build and be better than it ever was before. And like we were saying about addiction, it's the only disease that leaves the sufferer in better shape than before they actually had the disease.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we were saying earlier, is this is a disease full of hope, and that, you can have a full life, an amazing life. You can have a family that's amazing. So there's a lot of gifts to it, but it is a disease that hides in shame. And, we always say we're only as sick as our secrets, but it is reach out, speak to someone, find a resource. There's so many people out there.
It's interesting too, because there's it just reminds me of this one kid who came in who was really out of control, but his dad was the reason everything changed, because he was willing to admit, like you were saying with your folks, that I know I'm not doing this right. He was real authoritarian, and he came in and took a lot of guff from all of the members of the family during the beginning, and he was willing to sort of take it and hear it and then work with it. And it's like when you have people like this grandma calling and an uncle calling and a dad like this who are willing to say, like, I am willing to take a look at this, it opens everything up. And then the pressure for young people is taken off of them, and that's such a big piece of it, which is why, you know, the young adults are so great too.
And so many of the adolescents at Hired Power, we do a lot of what we call safe passage. So we pick up a lot of adolescents and transport them to treatment centers. And it's amazing how many times we hear, oh, I was waiting for this to happen. I knew this was happening. I was wondering what took them so long.
And there's a sense of relief that you finally, because here's the thing, if you can name it, you could probably, you know, you could deal with it. And that's a, you know, that's a great thing is with addiction. If you could figure, you know, if you could, the great thing about alcoholism is that there's a cure.
I think the one thing behind the kids feeling like that I've experienced is that it's a relief because they're taking on so much of the emotional health of the family or sickness of the family. And it's when you're carrying 60-70% of that around, and then somebody finally comes and says, okay, you don't have to carry all of that, or I don't want to carry it anymore, I want to drop it. It is a relief, and then things can start to shift.
I was reading a study the other day, and it was saying the percentage of parents that think their teens have trouble is about half of the teens that will identify themselves as being in trouble. So how interesting is that? If you have 50% of a room of adolescents saying I'm in trouble, and 25% of the parents saying I think my kid might be in trouble, you know, we're all in trouble.
Yeah. By the way, if you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. Let's go to Julie in Oregon. Welcome to KLEAN Radio, Julie.
Hi. I just had a quick question, and I'll let other people on. I have two boys. They're 9 and 12. They're great kids. We have really good open communication. We talk about everything. But I know kids don't tell their parents everything. And I wanted to know if there were any tell signs that you're not looking for that you should maybe be aware of if they're getting involved in something or around people that, you know, something that you don't always foresee. I mean, as a parent, you do everything you possibly can, of course, but I know parents don't just wake up and go, my kid started smoking pot today.
Well, you're doing the biggest right thing, I think, which is developing, and this can never start too early, you're just developing that kind of open relationship for when things go bad, if they go bad, that they can come to you and talk to you. And I think the other piece is that if they have other adults in their life, I say this to parents all the time, I'm going to say the exact same thing that you've said a million times, but I'm not going to look or sound like you, so they're going to hear me better. And you got to have lots of those other adults, even, you know, friends, parents and things. That, you know, if you have, it takes a village, like Nanette said, you know, if there's a lot of people keeping an eye on them and you have that communication, you know, stuff's still going to happen. I have a 7-year-old right now, and it's like, I know it's coming, you know, and I know and all I'm doing right now is I'm building this open, loving relationship with him that he'll use at some point, hopefully.
And in the day of technology, stay aware. If they have, you know, when they get cell phones, when they're using computers, iPads, iPods, you know, I sometimes tease and say I'm a stalker on my children's Facebook or on their Instagram, but we need to understand the lingo. You know, someone called in earlier with the word Molly. There's a lot of language that's being used that is a drug culture language that if we just read a text, we may not know that that's a drug related. So stay informed, stay aware, be very involved. As a parent, I was always volunteering for carpool. And I'll tell you, I drove carpool because if I sat quietly in the front seat and drove, I learned more in a 15-minute carpool than my child would ever tell me. So be that it sounds as though you are, obviously, by calling in, but be that parent who offers to be that coach or that carpool person. Read the text.
And it's okay to say no.
That's great.
And it's okay to search the backpacks.
Julie, it's okay to like be a parent, and it's, you know, I got to tell you, it's a lot harder being a parent today than it was when I was growing up. You know, it's you know, in those days it was one phone call, everybody would meet at the park, you know, and maybe we would all the parents would drive the kids to the movies. But today it's terrifying. You have the webcam stuff. You have pictures on your phone and
Snapchat,
that's
Instagram.
Exactly right. You know, I don't think there's a need, and I know I'm going to sound archaic when I say this, but a 12-year-old should be playing in the park, not playing on a phone.
They don't need an iPhone or an iPad.
And
they
I know,
don't have it, and they've never been on Facebook
you
or
know,
anything.
you know,
I don't do that.
But they'll approach it eventually, so be aware.
Oh, they will.
You know, but you're in Oregon, you know, and Nanette, her kids play for UCLA. There's not a competition yet. But here's the thing. It's like, you know, go to football games, live life, and not enough kids.
We do. We do a lot of camping. We do as much outdoors
Amazing.
You know what, Julie? I'm telling you, you know, you can't predict this stuff. It's all a crapshoot, really. All you could do is the best job you can do. And pray to God.
But
and
there's a genetic predisposition, though, too, that'll get us.
I know, and that's what concerns me.
I know, and I was just going to add one thing that, you know, having those treatment becomes a lot about teaching people how to check in with their feelings and communicate those things so that they can start to get on top of it. You can start doing that right now. If you have worries, if you have concerns, if you have lessons that you want to be teaching, that you can start talking. 9, 12 years old are wonderful ages to just be curious and hearing what mom and dad have to say and their thoughts about things. And, you know, just you can start opening their eyes, and I'm sure you do.
And here's the thing.
And we do.
And remember, with every no, there could be sometimes an explanation, Julie. You know, I'm not a big Miley Cyrus fan. I think I've made it apparent during this show.
Despite your past article.
You know, despite my past article defending her. But here's the thing. Don't just say you can't watch something. Explain why sometimes that you can't do it.
Right.
And, you know, that's sometimes
really important.
That's a really important thing, because we always want to tell teenagers or kids, don't do this. But we don't say why, or we don't say...
Oh, they do that anyway. They say why. So
right, but of course, they're kids.
And sometimes no is a complete sentence as a parent.
Listen,
you know?
I'm not the parent here, so I'll definitely stay out of that one. But just don't let your kids watch Miley Cyrus, please. I'm trying to lose one fan for her one day at a time.
They don't want to, actually.
Okay, good.
God bless her. Someone's got to go. Someone's got to go save that girl.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be Dr. Jeff.
Yeah, you're doing amazing, Julie. And thank you so much for the call.
Thank you very
And keep
much.
us in the loop every once in a while. I'd love to hear how you're doing.
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you, Julie. That's
Thank you,
Julie from
Julie.
Oregon. And if you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. So give us a call, 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. You know, here's the thing. I don't think it's because I'm getting old, Jeff. You know, if anything, I should love the Miley Cyrus video. Some people might say to me,
you shouldn't.
What's
No,
right?
These crazy kids.
It wasn't a publicity stunt.
You know,
she's in trouble.
There's this whole thing, and you know, I love concerts, and we're talking about. I made a deal with myself when I got sober that I wasn't going to let the alcoholism affect how I wanted to live my life.
Right.
You know, so I go to baseball games, I go to concerts, and you know what bothers me? Not the alcohol. It's the people not being in the moment. You know, the people that are recording the shows the whole time. You're right here. You know, who are you filming this for? Right. What website are you posting the killers on?
Hurry, post for Facebook.
Right, that's exactly right. Yeah. Instead of like really enjoying in the moment, and I think that's one of the great things about sobriety. You know, you're at this event that you're starting up. You see the tailgaters,
Recovery First
Tailgaters, and it's a very cool thing to be in that moment. You know, of sobriety or of health. Going to a football game sober is an awesome buzz.
Yeah, it is.
A different buzz, yeah.
And a great buzz.
Yeah.
And that's really what life is about. I mean, if we're focusing on recovery and we're focusing on living a happy, joyous, and free lifestyle, we need to be out there doing those type of things, whether our passion is hiking, whether it's music, whether it's sports. We need to be as involved or more so, because we're actually capable of paying attention and not passing out in the game or participating in a hike. And we need to be doing that, because that's really where the promises come in.
No, I completely agree. It's about doing that balancing act of living in the world that young people live in now, which is really different than ours was, and being aware of what some of the pitfalls are. And that's where a mom like, I can't remember her name, who just called in. Julie, who
thank you, Julie.
Yes, who's you know, she's doing all the right things. It sounds like, you know, she's having those conversations, and you can, you know, instead of letting the world sort of meet your kids, you're showing them what's out there and pointing out some of the things along the way.
Do you guys think that is part of the problem, is that we're not acknowledging how we've advanced in some great ways, but in some ways how technology has really beaten us, not beaten us, but it's 30, it's so far ahead of us sometimes that, and I think people are scared because, when it comes to drugs, the first thing we do to people is we scare them. Right. Instead of teaching
Just say
them.
no.
Right, instead of teaching them.
Well, it's moving so fast that we're just getting a hold on what all of it is. It's like, it's the joke now where you see 4 people sitting at the dinner table and they're all each individually on their own device. That's a new thing. And we have to continue to talk about it and be aware of it.
Let's go to Todd in Oregon. Welcome to KLEAN Radio, Todd.
Hello,
Hi,
Todd.
Hi, I'm Todd. I have a bipolar disorder, bipolar 1, and I wish early on that they would have detected that I had depression and treated me for depression, because like everybody in my family had depression and anxiety, but it was a big secret. Right.
No, I mean, that's a big key. And, once you have a good diagnosis, you can make a good treatment plan. And, that's one of my beefs. It's like, we do a lot of the testing up front, and we want people to be doing that up front, because it's different if you're coming off of a depressant that you've been using versus you have a depressive disorder or a bipolar disorder. Those are very different medical treatments, and they're sometimes very different therapeutic treatments too. I mean, it's better late than never. I know it sucks to have not had it up front.
Especially, Todd, where are you now?
I'm in Oregon State Hospital.
Okay. And, it's an amazing thing, Todd. I really, you got to give yourself amazing props and be really proud of yourself, because you're facing demons that we all have. All of us have issues, some more severe, some not. And I love that you guys are listening to us.
And that you're picking up the phone and reaching out.
Todd, you represent so many people that aren't getting help, okay?
I know that people are, begging to get in here for help. And I've played Russian roulette with antidepressants, and you can't treat bipolar with antidepressants most of the time. So they put me on Lamictal.
Yeah.
Todd, we're running out of time. Can you do me a favor, Todd? Can you give us a call back next week?
Yeah, sure.
And we'll talk about this more, okay, Todd?
Okay, thanks a lot. Have a great night.
Yeah, thank you for calling,
Todd. And let's get to a quick call. We have Elizabeth in Oregon. Welcome to KLEAN Radio, Elizabeth.
Oregon's in the house.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, how are you, Elizabeth?
I'm okay.
Okay, how could we help you?
My sister, who's 23 years old, has been doing heroin and meth since she was 13 years old.
Wow.
She's a dropout. She doesn't have a job. She's been through at least 3 or 4 rehabs, and she's living with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom has just completed a year from breast cancer, finally got through the chemo radiation. My sister got needles in the room, bloody gauzes around the house, and we have no idea what to do now.
So it sounds like our intervention needs to be on mom. It really sounds like educating your mom and maybe getting her to an Al-Anon meeting or to a therapist, someone who can help her draw some boundaries. It sounds like her house has been invaded, and your sister's not getting the help she needs because of the love and concern of your mother at this point in time, who I'm sure is a woman who's doing the best she can.
Is there any way your sister wants to get help, Elizabeth?
We've tried so many times, and I really don't think she wants to. And my mom has gone to a therapist. We've gone through multiple things. We used to do the meetings when she was in rehab, so we've kind of done the intervention style thing.
Okay, but so we're running out of time, Elizabeth. But here's the thing: I want you to first of all, Nanette, how do people get in touch with you?
1-800-910-9299 or hired, HIREDPOWER.com.
That's hiredpower.com, Elizabeth. But here also, we have a facility in Washington State. It's a pretty cool place. But the biggest thing I want you to do for yourself is get help for yourself now.
Correct.
I know you went to meetings and rehabs, but there's a program that's called Al-Anon that's for the family member. I'm sure you've heard of it, Elizabeth.
Get mom there.
And yourself.
But get yourself, right? And because I don't want you to have to go through this by yourself, Elizabeth, okay?
Okay.
And I want you to do me a favor. Can you call back next week and let us know?
Yep.
Because you shouldn't have to go through this by yourself, okay? I'm going to give you out a number, okay? It's 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. It's absolutely a free call. We're here to help. And like I said before, Elizabeth, people need advocates, Nanette.
They do.
It's people like Elizabeth, people like all the great callers tonight. They need somebody knowing that we're going to go to battle for you. I can't think of anybody better. Elizabeth, thank you for the call.
Thank you.
I can't think of anybody better being an advocate for you than people in the studio tonight. Nanette Zumwalt from Hired Power, hiredpower.com.
Hiredpower.com.
Jeff Nalin, Paradigm Doctor, amazing guest. Paradigm, what's the website?
Paradigm Malibu.
ParadigmMalibu.com.
I wanted to hear you say it because you sound so amazing.
Malibu.
Jeff, I really want to thank you for co-hosting with me tonight.
Thank you.
You were my co-host with the most, and I'd love to thank the amazing Nanatte Zumwalt, who is going to be back on the show because she's a fascinating person. We didn't get into nearly all the cool things. If you want to see a great woman, Nanatte Zumwalt, and look at her kids. They play for UCLA, number 9 in the nation.
Go Bruins.
Go Bruins, and I don't mean to offend everybody in Oregon that called tonight. Thank you, everybody out there. Thank you, everybody. The discussion continues at KLEANRadio.com.
Thank you.
Are you or someone you care about addicted to drugs or alcohol? Addiction ruins lives and destroys families. Bring an end to the pain and suffering by calling KLEAN Treatment Centers. KLEAN has helped people from around the world break free by not only treating the addiction, but the underlying causes and providing vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean with no gimmicks and no false promises. If you need immediate assistance or just have questions, call KLEAN Treatment Centers for guidance. A much better life awaits.